I pretty much wanted to just introduce these items to y'all and kind of just be like, oh yeah, I remember how hyped that was when it came out and how little we want it now. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, and today's video is just something I've been thinking about lately, and it's just makeup that I'm glad I didn't buy. That at the time I really wanted. I was so close, like had it in my cart, was at the checkout, put in my payment information, almost hit complete order, but then I decided to wait, and I'm so glad I did. I also know that Kelly Gooch has made videos on this topic in the past, so this is also largely inspired by her. Side note, Kelly Gooch started following me on Instagram in the last week, and I'm just like, what? I'm a big deal now. I'm famous. I don't know what to say. If you're not already following me on Instagram, definitely do, because you'll get to see more stuff on my life, and I'm getting married in a couple of weeks. It's not a big deal or anything. But anyways, let's just get right back on track and talk about these 8 products that I am glad I didn't buy. 5 out of those 8 products are eyeshadow palettes, of course, because if we're talking about myself, you know the ratio has to be at least that. This isn't an exhaustive list, and that is because when I was putting this list together, I straight up could not remember any other items, and that just goes to show you how quickly we forget about things after we decide not to buy them. Makeup attention span is so short, so short. The picks I included today are pretty big ones and actually kind of funny to look back on now, like 1 or 2 years later. So first product, I'll scoot over, is the Tati Beauty Textured Neutrals Volume 1 eyeshadow palette. Ooh, 2 years later, yeah. Bring yourself back to 2019 with me when this was coming out and Tati was at the height of her career. The first reason in 2021 that I'm glad I didn't buy this palette is because of it being Tati Beauty, and I just would feel weird using it now after everything that is just even now continually being revealed about that whole situation. I don't even want to touch on it. So I'm glad I don't own something so attached to the personas involved. Second reason is when I think about it logically, there are 4 rows, and 2 of the rows consist of pressed glitters, which I dislike, and mattes with shimmers, which I also dislike. So that just would not have been a very practical purchase for me to begin with. So that is my first palette. Let's just ride along with the controversial personalities. My second pick is the Jeffree Star Conspiracy palette. I cannot tell you how close I was to buying this palette for the sole purpose of reviewing it on my channel. And of course, Jafar Starfish was controversial even when this palette came out, but it's just gotten so much worse. So much worse. And then even with Shane Dawson, oh, I just feel uncomfortable even mentioning their names right now. Looking at this palette, it's ugly. I have tried Jeffree Star shadows in the past, and I honestly don't think they're so, I don't understand what the hype is really. Jeffree Star stans who like just say, I buy the makeup for the makeup kind of thing. The makeup was not that good in the first place. So I am just happy I don't have this like in my home or just ever to have contributed money or had anything to do with that brand. I've never directly purchased from Jeffree Star, but I did purchase a couple like secondhand palettes in 2019. Third palette that I was very, very close to purchasing, and honestly I still feel like I would really enjoy this palette if I had it in my life now, and that is the ABH Carli Bybel palette. If I'm being frank, the main thing that prevented me from purchasing, no, even though I was really close to it, was the packaging. I just knew that looking at the tryptophobic circles that are disorganized on the packaging would irk me every time I pick it up. But I like Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow formula, and I think the shades in the Carli Bybel palette are very like beautiful and soft and would create some really pretty eye looks. There are 2 reasons, I feel like there are 2 reasons for all of these palettes, but there are 2 reasons why I'm especially happy now in 2021 that I never bought this palette. Firstly is because I know the packaging would still bother me, and secondly is just the precipitous downfall that happened to Anastasia Beverly Hills in 2019. This palette came out in the beginning quarter of 2019, and then everything else came out. So I just am not really interested in buying any more Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes now. I own the Jackie Aina, the Sultry, and the Soft Glam, and I feel like if you own those 3, you own most of what Anastasia Beverly Hills has to offer. And you definitely own the best formulas already. So that is my third pick. The fourth palette is Colourpop Mulan collaboration palette. So this was a 15 pan palette. The color story looked really pretty, and this actually ended up being the first palette that I ever duped shade for shade on my channel. What? I know, I've come so far since then, but yeah, wow. A big reason why I was attracted to this palette was also because of Mulan, because I grew up like with, of course, I would connect the most with Mulan. And this palette was tied to the live action Mulan movie, and that ended up being not very good. So I'm glad I have something that's not tied to that commercial disaster now. Yeah. I forgot to talk about the Colourpop controversy that happened this year. So there have been accusations of Colourpop just being kind of performatively inclusive, doing the bare minimum. Stuff like that being talked about leaves a sour taste in your mouth, as it should. And for at least the past year, many of us have just been getting so tired of Colourpop's release patterns and consumption patterns, and I just also decided not to really buy more Colourpop if I can help it. That decision is not entirely because of controversy, because I'm sure that they can make changes in the future to show that they're changing and so on, whatever. But that's also because I'm just not interested in anything they're putting out anymore. In 2019, I bought a lot of Colourpop. I'm talking a lot. But in 2020, I only purchased 2 palettes, and that was the Sailor Moon and the Raw Beauty Christie palette. In 2021, I anticipate not buying any palettes from them. Okay, so I talked about that. Let's go on to my 5th pick, which is the Natasha Denona Bronze eyeshadow palette. This was the first like true neutral mid-sized palette that Natasha Denona put out, and beauty community went crazy. And everyone was reviewing this. Everyone was saying it was like the high Natasha Denona quality at the mid price point, and it was so worth it and all this stuff, right? So of course that made me want it. I looked at it for like 2 seconds more and I'm like, that's a pretty orange palette, and I don't like orange. So yeah. So reason one I'm glad I don't own that palette now is because it is still $65. That's not cheap. That is not an affordable palette. That's still on the high price of high-end palettes. And the color story, if I'm paying that much, it has to be the perfect color story for me. I better love every single shade, right? And now looking at this color story, it is not the perfect palette for me. At this point, the Glam palette had not come out yet. So the only neutral option was this very warm palette. So I think a lot of people who maybe would have preferred a cool tone palette still ended up buying this palette because it was new and exciting. And maybe some people wish they had it now. I'm going to call it like right now that this year, Natasha Denona is going to come out with a full-size retro palette with like a pink and green color story, if we can kind of extrapolate from the mini retro palette. Ooh, if that palette comes out, I will really have to try hard not to buy it, because pinks and greens, and also maybe purples, but the combination of pinks and greens I love in terms of eyeshadows. Yeah, I kind of hope she comes out with that because I think that would be gorgeous, but then I also kind of hope she doesn't come out with that because that would get me in trouble. There's a second reason why I am glad now that I never bought the Natasha Denona Bronze eyeshadow palette, and that is because since then, Alter Ego has come out with a dupe palette with excellent quality, really smooth, buttery shadows, and that is the Alter Ego Canyon palette. I did receive this palette and I reviewed it and did swatches and the whole deal. I'll link the video up here. And just getting that palette really confirmed to me that this is not my color story. So, oh, I cannot imagine having spent $65+ on that. Those are the 5 eyeshadow palettes. If that's all you were interested in, sure, you can just yeet out right now. I do have 3 other more recent makeup releases that I want to talk about though. The first being Auric. I stan Samantha Ravndahl, and so of course I would want to support any business venture she starts, but it is just out of my price range. This is not like a healthy level of parasocial relationship if you feel like the only way for you to support a creator is to purchase anything they put out, whether it be merch or makeup or clothing, you know, whatever. I know that Samantha is going to do an amazing job with Auric this year, and I know that this year she is already talking about releasing new stuff in her line. It's just out of my price point, and that's it. I can't convince myself otherwise. The second non-eyeshadow palette release I have to talk about is like pretty old, but I really wanted this when it came out, and that was the Fenty Beauty Cream Bronzers. Oh, all the reviews of this were so good. And I do have the Milk Makeup Bronzer already in my collection, so that is pretty much all that kept me from buying the Fenty Beauty bronzer, but all the reviews were making it look so pretty. And I like that it's in a pan rather than in a stick form. I find that pans are just more convenient to use to begin with. And so I thought like, man, I know I'm gonna use that product a lot if I buy it. I still feel like I would use that product a lot if I did own it, but I really don't need it, especially now since we're wearing masks and everything, and I wear a mask to the hospital every day. I am not needing to have so many iterations of the same shades of bronzer and blush and highlighter and all that. And the last release is the Rare Beauty Liquid Blushes. Again, all the reviews for these blushes were raving, and I love me some cream products, but I have a lot of cream blushes. I actually did do a beginning of 2021 makeup inventory video. Will be linked up there and in the description box. So you can really see like how much I own of everything right now. And I just don't need to add another liquid blush to that. And those are all of my 8 picks to talk about today. This is not meant to be like everything I ever wanted and never bought kind of video. It's more, I wanted this to be more of like a springboard for discussion in the comment section, because there are so many things that I can't remember because I just straight up forgot about them, and those products that came out in the past that I forgot about, they just straight up don't exist to me anymore. So if you can remember anything that I didn't include on this list that just like really drew you in, but that desire just was fleeting like that, let me know in the comments. I'll also come up with a few more, I bet, after I post this video that I will put in a comment down below too. This video was so much fun to film. If you have any kind of commentary type video ideas you want me to touch on, definitely leave requests in the comments. I read all of them and I respond to all of your comments. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Your precious, precious time you could have spent doing anything, but you picked to spend it with me. I was tripping over my words there. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember that y'all are my treasure. Find the beauty in every day, but most importantly, be kind to yourselves. I will see you in my next video. Bye.